and as you are all aware, the two leaders have remained in very regular touch since they first met in June 2017. After Prime Minister reaches in Paris midday tomorrow, his first interaction would be with the Prime Minister of France during the remainder of day tomorrow, as also with the President of the French Senate, Mr. Gérard Larcher, on the same day. In the evening tomorrow, Prime Minister has an introduction scheduled with the Indian community, which would be followed by a private dinner to be hosted by President Macron at Élysée Palace in honor of the Prime Minister. The major official and ceremonial part of the visit will start on the 14th, which is with the Prime Minister's participation at the French National Day celebrations, Bastille Day. This is a very, very special gesture extended by France to Prime Minister Modi. As part of our participation in the Bastille Day celebrations, a large tri-services contingent from India will also participate in the Bastille Day parade, along with 3 Indian Air Force aircraft, which would also take part in the flypast after the Bastille Day celebrations. Program on the 14th also includes meeting with the President of the French National Assembly, Mrs. Borne, and series of other meetings with the thought leaders and prominent business people. There is going to be another ceremonial reception at the Élysée Palace on the 14th, later in the evening, which will then be followed by delegation-level discussions led by Prime Minister Modi and President Macron. The two leaders will also interact with the CEOs from both countries under the rubric of India-France CEO Forum. The program in France would conclude with a state banquet to be hosted in honor of Prime Minister in the evening of 14th of July at the iconic Louvre Museum. As you are all aware, India and France have a long-standing strategic partnership, which actually captures a series of strategic convergences that both countries have on a range of issues. And this year marks 25th anniversary of our strategic partnership. There are several pillars of our strategic partnership, and each of these pillars would come up for taking and the pathway ahead in terms of future cooperation in these areas: security cooperation, space cooperation, engagement in the civil nuclear domain, technology partnership, partnership in the field of counterterrorism, cybersecurity, climate change, renewable energy, issues relating to International Solar Alliance, reorientation of our security partnership in line with Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat objectives, supply chain integration between the industry and business segments of the two countries, etc., would all form part of discussions under the bilateral talks that the two leaders would hold. Economic ties, one of the key centerpieces of India-France strategic partnership, has been on robust upswing, spans across not just the conventional areas of trade, industry and investment cooperation, but is also increasingly focused on the new and emerging domains, including the startup industries. India has had a very robust participation, for example, in Viva Tech, which is one of the signature forums of participation by technology, innovation, and startup companies in France. Space economy is again a very upcoming area besides the traditional area of cooperation in the space. Besides, of course, the substance of discussions, we all know that both President Macron and Prime Minister Modi share a very warm and personal, strong equation, and their common vision has actually given a very strong guidance to the further deepening and expansion of our partnership. The visit of Prime Minister to France would be both rich in substance and also in form, and we would think or believe that it would set new benchmarks for our strategic partnership in years ahead. After concluding his visit to France, Prime Minister would depart for UAE and reach there on 15th of July, where he will meet His Highness Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, President of the UAE and ruler of Abu Dhabi, to be followed by ceremonial welcome, bilateral talks, and other events organized in honor of Prime Minister's visit to UAE. We have all seen in front of our eyes in last few years a significant transformation that has taken place in India-UAE relations over the last few years, and a central driver of this has been the vision of the two leaders, the President of the UAE and the Prime Minister of India. Both of them, of course, also enjoy excellent personal rapport, which is reflected in their very frequent engagements. They last met in June in Abu Dhabi when PM visited UAE while on his return from the G7 summit in Munich. They have since, of course, also met in many virtual platforms, including the last one in July last year during the I2U2 summit. As you would all be aware that in February 22, during the virtual summit, the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement between India and UAE was signed. A joint vision statement was also issued at that time. We have seen a significant jump, qualitative enhancement in the substance of our engagement across the whole range of areas since the signing of the CEPA, and the partnership has continued to grow from strength to strength. This is particularly reflected in the strong economic exchanges, both on the trade side but also on the investment side, people-to-people ties, and also convergence on a range of regional and international issues. Bilateral trade is currently at a very strong $85 billion between India and UAE, making UAE India's third largest trading partner last year, and India's second largest export destination is UAE. Also, very substantial large sums of FDI flows from UAE have taken place to India, making UAE the fourth largest overall investor in India. UAE and India are also very strong partners in the field of energy security, and besides those, several new areas of partnership and engagement have also registered strong progress, including in the field of renewables, health, food security, S&T, education, fintech, and defense and security. As we all know that Indian diaspora is present in very strong and robust numbers in UAE, about 3.5 million, and the historical people-to-people ties between India and UAE remain a key pillar of our strategic partner. UAE is also a special invitee during India's G20 presidency summit to be held in September this year. India and UAE are also cooperating very closely on COP28, which will be held in UAE towards the end of this year. Prime Minister's visit to UAE provides a useful opportunity for us to review this important partnership and inject further momentum across the whole range of areas that we cooperate in. I would stop here. If there are questions, we'll take that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Please introduce yourself and the organization that you represent before asking your questions. I'll start with you. I saw your hand first.
सर मधुरेंद्र, मैं न्यूज़ नेशन से। आपने स्ट्रेटजिक पार्टनरशिप की बात कही इंडिया और फ्रांस के बीच। ये माना जा रहा है कि प्रधानमंत्री मोदी के इस दौरे के दौरान भारत और फ्रांस के बीच कुछ नए डिफेंस डील की घोषणा होगी। अगर उस पर आप कुछ बताएं कि क्या सबमरीन और राफेल जैसी जो बातें
पहले से ही
बिल्कुल, चूंकि तमाम चीजें प्रोसीजर्स में होंगी और
आप पूछ सकते हैं,
घोषणा का इंतजार है। इस बारे में जो भी प्रकाश आप डालना चाहें आप
जरूर। आपकी तरफ
सर, बास्टिल डे में पहले आप
पार्टी।
सर, मैं मनीष राव टीवी 9 से, और मेरा सवाल है कि प्रधानमंत्री इस बार फिर बास्टिल डे के फंक्शन में चीफ गेस्ट रहेंगे, तो इंडिया का पहले जो पार्टिसिपेशन रहा था और इस बार के पार्टिसिपेशन में किस लेवल का स्केल में अंतर है?
पिछली बार मतलब प्रधानमंत्री
दूसरा इवेंट दूसरी बार है जब इंडियन प्राइम मिनिस्टर इस फंक्शन में चीफ गेस्ट होंगे।
दोनों बार चीफ गेस्ट रहे हैं। मैं समझा नहीं कि आपका प्रश्न क्या है।
आपने सर मेंशन किया कि जैसे इंडियन आर्मी के और दूसरे लोग वहां पर पार्टिसिपेट करेंगे, तो कितना अंतर है 2009 के इवेंट में और इस बार के?
अच्छा, कंटिजेंट की बात कर रहे हैं।
So I'm Amiti Sen. I'm from the Hindu Business Line. So are there any specific trade and investment issues that the PM would want to take forward during the meeting? And the CEO forum, do we have the names of some of the companies that would be represented from both sides?
Yeah, my microphone is behind you.
Sir, I'm Huma Siddiqui from the Financial Express. You talked about ties in space and space economy. What about the space economy? How is India and France involved in that? And also there's news that the French president is interested in attending the BRICS summit. So would that also be discussed?
So Hasini.
So Hasini Heather from the Hindu. Foreign Secretary, if we could ask about the India-US nuclear cooperation for the Jaitapur NPP.
Sorry,
France.
You mean India-France?
Sorry, India-France. Slip of the tongue. Last year in November, our minister, Mr. Jitendra Singh, had gone to France. He had welcomed the minister from France. He had announced that in time for this visit in the 25th year, that all the pending issues on Jaitapur would have been resolved. Are we expecting to see some kind of an announcement during the Prime Minister's visit, given that it's been several years and the issues of cost as well as liability in particular seem to be appointed? And later, if we have time, I had another question, but we can come back to it.
आंकड़ों के बीच में वो देखें, उनकी व्यापकता को देखें, उनके विस्तार को देखें, तो आप पाएंगे कि वो अपने आप में एक यूनिक और एक अद्भुतपूर्व स्वागत होगा। ये पिछले निमंत्रण से कैसे कंपेयर करता है, वो आप स्वयं पिछले निमंत्रण को उठा के देख के कंपेयर करके अपने आप निष्कर्ष स्वयं निकालें तो वो ज़्यादा बेहतर रहेगा। लेकिन जो इस बार बास्टिल डे के में पार्टिसिपेशन के जो प्रोग्राम की संरचना है और प्रोग्राम के अलावा जो बाकी यात्रा के जो संदर्भ हैं, उसके जो स्पेसिफिक्स हैं, आप पाएंगे कि वो बहुत ही एक्सटेंसिव और बहुत ही डीप हैं अपने आप में। Ms. Sen, I think your question was on trade, investment, and the CEO forum. Look, as I mentioned, if you look at different dimensions of India-France partnership, you will find that trade, investment, and technology, whether it is related to goods or it extends to services, you will find that they have always been a very, very strong focus of our engagement between the two countries. The CEO forum provides both the leaders an opportunity to provide a clear direction to the CEOs on both sides, to look at new elements of trade, technology and investment partnership between the two countries. Given the kind of changes that are taking place in the world, how exactly do the industrial supply chains of France, more important than that, the value supply chains, not just the good supply chain, but the value supply chains get integrated between the two countries, will be a very important element of the discussions during this visit. And these would naturally be positioned in the CEO Forum meeting when it takes place on 14th of July. We will be sharing the specific details of the CEOs participating in the CEO Forum as we go along. At this stage today, we are not able to share those details with you, but I can tell you that this would be one of the key centerpieces of discussions when the two leaders meet, as also when they together speak with the members of the CEO Forum on 14th of July. See, on space economy and on BRICS, if you look at India's overall growth journey in the space sector and how India has partnered with different countries, you will find that India-France partnership in the field of space is actually one of the oldest, and is probably also, would be correct to say perhaps, is probably the most wide-ranging in the field of space. The sector, the space sector globally is undergoing considerable evolution at this stage, which is having an impact on different elements of space sector economy, whether it is relating to the launches, whether it is to the development of the payloads, whether it is relating to the small, micro and nano satellites, medium satellite, heavy satellites. All these areas are actually new areas of great promise in terms of India-France bilateral cooperation in the field of space. We have seen over the last few years very strong growth and deepening of our partnership in the field of space. And we are confident that during this visit, there would be further expansion of this engagement between the two countries, which will begin to touch on some of the new areas of the space economy between the two countries. On the, BRICS participation, as you know, South Africa is the host country for this year's BRICS summit. What countries are being invited to participate in the BRICS summit, I think is a question that one should address actually to South Africa, and not really to India in the current context. We have heard of expression of interest from France wanting to participate in the BRICS summit, but as I said, this is something which actually should be addressed to South Africa. Mr. Hashmi, on the Jaitapur question, again, if you go back, you will find that civil nuclear cooperation as a larger frame of reference has always been one of the very strong pillars of India-France partnership. You have mentioned about two of the areas of focus in the progress in the civil nuclear partnership. One relating to the question of liability, and the second relating to the cost. You have, I'm not an expert in this space, but I can easily also add another one, which relates to how exactly do the techno-commercial arrangements of the Jaitapur cooperation project and also the engineering elements of those need to converge together for the concretization of cooperation to materialize. Now, this is something on which both sides, the EDF and the relevant French authorities on their side, and Department of Atomic Energy and other agencies on our side, are very intensely engaged with each other to address all elements relating to progress in the Jaitapur project, whether these are questions relating to nuclear liability. Obviously, there is a set of laws, rules, and other explanatory frameworks that are governing of the liability question when it comes to India. CNLD Act, CLLD rules, FAQs that got introduced, the strong and robust insurance mechanism that exists for that. Combine that with, as you yourself observed, the questions relating to the cost at which the eventual power is to be produced, relevant techno-commercial elements of the cooperation need to be factored in also. So both sides are currently, as I said, very, very closely and intensely talking about it to make progress on this issue, and which we would, depending upon what stage we are at, will suitably reflect it in the outcomes for the summit.
Manav?
This is Manas Pratim Bhuyama, PTI. Prime Minister's visit to Paris is taking place at a time, in fact, entire Europe is rallying very strongly behind Ukraine. And President Macron has been one of the global leaders who has been maintaining some kind of contacts with Moscow. And obviously, we are very close to Moscow. Our Prime Minister has been talking to President Putin since the beginning of the conflict. So, do you think, in fact, it is a good occasion for the two leaders to explore the possibility of ensuring some kind of solution to the Ukraine conflict? Thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, we have Sridhar from the Asian Age and Deccan Chronicle. So, we have seen the past couple of weeks France being ravaged by riots. Triggered by basically the protests of the North African immigrants there. Something similar was witnessed about 3 years back, similar strife, and at that time Prime Minister Modi had spoken to the French president and expressed India's solidarity with France and fighting terrorism and extremism. But this time India has been largely silent, and we have not really reacted. And also, was there any apprehension from your side that the visit could be impacted in some way because the the riots were raging till very recently? Thank you.
No other questions, so we'll stop with that. Thank you. Oh, so Hassan, you had a question? Yeah, the second one. Yeah, Michael.
Foreign Secretary, if you'll just indulge in a question slightly related to Europe. And that is that on the eve of Prime Minister's visit there, the European Parliament is actually looking at a resolution on Manipur today. I wanted to ask what the Indian response is, and in particular to a news report that says India actually hired a lobby firm in Brussels, I think it's called Alber and Geiger, to try and stop this resolution from being discussed in the Parliament, but this did not go, this was not successful.
Manas, on Ukraine and contacts both by India and by France. Look, it's not correct for me to prejudge what the two leaders would discuss when they meet. But our perspective on the Russia-Ukraine conflict, on the derivative impacts of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, our constant interaction with President Putin, most recent meeting between Prime Minister and President Zelensky on the sidelines of Hiroshima G7 summit. Our well-known, well-appreciated, well-acknowledged position on Russia-Ukraine conflict. I think when the two leaders meet, naturally the developments in different parts of the world, the challenges some of those developments throw up will come up for discussion. My Prime Minister and President Macron have discussed this issue in the past also. I'm sure they'll take off from the conversation they've had in the past and will exchange perspective on that. As I said, what exactly was those discussions would not be really prudent for me to speak on that. The riots in Paris that you spoke about, its impact on the visit. Look, it's a matter internal to France, and from our perspective, we don't see any impact on the visit whatsoever. We have never had any doubt right throughout the course and have kept preparing for it completely. On the Manipur question, Suhasini, this is a matter totally internal to India. We are aware of what the Brussels in Parliament happening, and we have made a reach out to the concerned EU parliamentarians, but we have made it very clear to them this is a matter totally and absolutely internal to India.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Foreign Secretary, sir, as well as thank you to Shri Vipul for joining us on for the special briefing.